Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really going back, way back. We're digging into the absolute foundations of Western thought.
We are. We're talking about the thinkers before Socrates, the Pre-Socratics. These are the pioneers, the first ones trying to figure out the world using reason, not just myths.
And our mission today is to explore this early history using, the classic accounts and see how these ancient Greeks really set the stage for, well, for everything.
It's true. We often think of philosophy's legacy starting with Plato and Aristotle, and sure, contemporary philosophers follow their methods.
But the inheritance is wider, isn't it? Physics, medicine, linguistics.
Oh, absolutely. They all have roots here too. But philosophers specifically stick to those core aims and methods.
And where do we even start looking?
We start where the history of philosophy as a written subject really begins, with Aristotle.
Yeah?
He's the one who looked back and systematically documented thinkers like Thales right up to Plato in his metaphysics.
Okay, so let's follow Aristotle's lead. We begin with the Milesians, over on the Greek coasts of Asia Minor. What united these very first philosophers?
Well, they were obsessed with one huge question, the material cause.
Meaning,
what's the world actually made of? What's the fundamental, basic stuff underneath everything we see? It's a revolutionary shift, asking that instead of just attributing things to the gods.
And that brings us straight to Thales of Miletus, the first name on the list, usually.
Right. His big claim, water is the principle of everything.
Water. Why water?
Well, Aristotle guessed maybe because, everything needs water for life, or maybe he noticed how essential moisture is, like in semen and seeds. Thales also had this other saying, everything is full of gods, sort of mixing new ideas with older beliefs.
But he wasn't just fixated on water. What strikes me is how incredibly versatile these early figures were. Thales was a geometrician.
A brilliant one. Figured out how to measure the distance to ships using triangles.
And an astronomer, too. Credited with predicting a solar eclipse way back in 585 BC.
Yeah, this idea of the philosopher being impractical, head in the clouds, Thales actively pushed back against that.
Ah, yes, the famous story about the olive presses. That's a great one.
It really is. Aristotle tells it. Thales used his skill in meteorology to predict a bumper olive crop.
Nobody else saw it coming?
Nope. So he quietly rented all the olive presses, cheaply, then boom, massive harvest, everyone needs a press.
And he made a fortune.
Exactly. Just to prove that philosophers can get rich if they want to, but, they have other priorities. Wisdom over wealth.
Made his point, then moved on. But, okay, back to the water theory. It didn't take long for cracks to appear, did it?
No, it ran into a pretty basic logical problem, which Aristotle pointed out. If the earth rests on water, like a log floating.
What does the water rest on?
Precisely. It's that kind of critical thinking that pushed the next guy, Anaximandros, his fellow Milesian, to think even bigger.
Right, Anaximandros looked at Thales' water and maybe others suggesting air or fire and thought, none of these specific things can be the ultimate source.
Yeah, his logic was if one element, like fire, was the infinite source, wouldn't it have overwhelmed and destroyed all the other elements by now?
So his answer wasn't an element at all?
No, it was the aparo, the boundless, the indefinite.
Okay, that's a big leap into abstraction. How does this boundless work? If it's not water or air, what is it?
It's the eternal, inexhaustible source from which everything comes. It's not one specific thing. It's more like pure potential. Think of it as the ancestor of Aristotle's prime matter.
And how do we get the world we see, the specific things, from this indefinite stuff?
Anaximandros thought the opposites, hot and cold, wet and dry, separate out from the apeiron.
And he had this really poetic, almost legalistic view of cosmology, didn't he?
He did. Like the elements are in a cosmic court case, constantly paying compensation to each other for their injustice. Summer dominates, then has to yield and pay back winter, and so on. It's a cycle.
And thinking about origins, he had this startlingly modern idea about human life.
Yeah, quite remarkable. He observed that human babies need care for a long time, unlike other animals.
So how could the first humans have survived?
His idea was maybe we came from some other species, perhaps fish-like, that developed inside some kind of protective casing, like bark, until we could fend for ourselves.
Yeah.
It's this amazing proto-evolutionary thought, centuries before Darwin.
Incredible. Okay, after Anaximandros, we get Anaximenes.
Right, and Anaximenes swings back towards a concrete element. He picks air.
Air. So kind of replacing Thales' water as the fundamental substance.
Exactly. But Anaximenes' real genius wasn't just picking air. It was his explanation for change.
Ah, the mechanism.
Yes. Condensation and rarefaction. He argued that air changes into everything else just by becoming denser or thinner.
And he tried to prove this with an experiment, didn't he? Maybe the first recorded scientific appeal to
That's
experience?
the one, the hand-blowing test.
Right. Blow with pursed lips, condensed air, feels cool.
Blow with an open mouth, rarefied air, feels warm.
So he's linking quantity density directly to quality temperature, state of matter. Air condenses to wind, then clouds, water, earth, stone.
It's a huge step. They're moving away from pure myth, looking for observable, repeatable processes, even though, these elements often still had a kind of divine quality for them. And Anaximenes thought air was divine, the stuff of souls.
So that's Miletus. Now, let's shift focus. Across the sea to southern Italy, the whole game changes, doesn't it?
Completely. We leave the focus on material stuff and enter the world of Pythagoras and his followers in Croton. Their obsession, form, specifically numerical ratios.
Numbers. And their big insight came from music.
That's the story. They discovered these precise mathematical relationships between musical notes and the lengths of vibrating strings on a lyre. An octave is a 2.1 ratio, a fifth 3.2, and so on.
And this wasn't just about music for them.
Oh no, this is the key to the cosmos. They believed the universe itself was structured according to these mathematical ratios. The heavens are in musical harmony, they said. It's all numbers.
And Pythagoras didn't just teach this. He lived it. He founded a whole community, right? Almost like a religious order.
Very much so. He's even credited with coining the word philosophus, liver of wisdom. His community in Croton had strict rules, shared possessions. It was a model for later schools, like Plato's Academy.
Before we get to the really big clash, there's another figure worth mentioning briefly, Xenophanes. He went back to a material element.
Earth, yeah. All things come from Earth and end in Earth. Pretty straightforward.
But his more, maybe scientifically relevant contribution was looking at fossils.
Absolutely fascinating. He saw fossilized fish and seaweed in quarries, high up on mountains, far from the sea,
And concluded?
that the world must have been covered by water and mud at some point in the past. It's like protogeology. He was also a fierce critic of the way poets like Homer portrayed the gods, saying they acted immorally.
Okay, now for what feels like the main event in this early period, the huge metaphysical showdown that Plato and Aristotle had to grapple with, Heraclitus versus Parmenides.
This is the core tension. Heraclitus of Ephesus, they called him Dark Heraclitus because his writings were so obscure.
His central idea.
Universal flux. Everything flows. Change is the only constant reality. You can't step into the same river twice because the river has changed and you have changed.
The universe isn't static, it's like an ever-living fire.
Constantly changing, yes. But crucially, he didn't think it was pure chaos. There was an underlying principle, an order governing the flux.
The logos.
The logos, reason or word, this cosmic pattern that's hard for us humans to grasp, but it's there, structuring the change.
And then in complete diametrical opposition, Parmenides.
Parmenides,
Yeah.
who argued that actually nothing changes.
Yeah.
At all. Ever.
Wait, nothing changes? How does that work? We see change everywhere.
Parmenides said our senses deceive us. He used logic. Think about it. For something to change, it has to go from being X to not being X. But not being is, well, it's nothing.
And you can't get something from nothing.
Exactly. So, logically, change is impossible. True reality, what he called being, must be one eternal, unchanging, indivisible, motionless sphere.
So Parmenides basically says, trust logic, not your eyes. All this movement and decay we see, it's just illusion, the way of mortal opinion.
Precisely. And that is the monumental impasse. Heraclitus, everything changes, so how can we know anything for certain? Parmenides, nothing changes. Reality is stable, but it means rejecting everything our senses tell us.
Wow. You can see why Plato and Aristotle spent their careers trying to figure a way out of that dilemma.
It fundamentally shaped everything that came after.
Let's shift gears slightly. We've talked about what they thought, but what about how they lived? Did this intense philosophical quest shape their lives?
Oh, definitely. Look back at Thales with his witty remarks dodging marriage.
Right. Too early before a certain age, too late after.
That sort of detachment from conventional life seems to have become a theme. It's actually striking when you list the great philosophers through history.
Who are we talking about?
Well, Plato, Augustine, Aquinas, Descartes, Locke, Spinoza, Hume, Kant, Hegel, Wittgenstein. An incredible number of them remained unmarried.
That is striking. For nearly 2 millennia, it seems like deep philosophy and marriage were seen as almost incompatible.
Yeah, the source material notes Aristotle as the major exception, the one who really argued that, no, philosophical life and family life can go together.
Interesting. What about Heraclitus, Mr. Flux? He came from aristocracy, right?
He did. He had political rights, could have been involved in governing Ephesus.
But he wasn't interested.
Apparently not. The story goes he gave up his political role, preferred playing dice with kids in the temple courtyard to arguing with politicians.
A bit of an eccentric withdrawal.
But even in that withdrawal, he developed this powerful political philosophy grounded in his core idea, the Logos. He believed there was this single divine law underpinning everything, superior to any human laws.
What an incredible journey we've traced, from asking simple questions like, what's it all made of? Water, air, earth, using these, proto-scientific methods.
To grappling with these enormous opposing metaphysical systems. Reality as constant flux versus reality as utterly unchanging being. That leap is just astounding.
And that clash, Heraclitus versus Parmenides, it wasn't just an argument, it was the crucible for future philosophy.
Absolutely critical. Plato, for instance, had to respond. His theory of clever forms these perfect, eternal, unchanging essences. That's his way of satisfying Parmenides' demand for stable objects of knowledge.
While still allowing for the changing physical world we see, sort of acknowledging Heraclitus.
Exactly. It's about finding a synthesis, a way to reconcile these powerful, opposing insights. Philosophical progress often looks like that, not just finding answers, but refining the questions.
So reflecting on all this, where does it leave us, the listener, today?
Well, that fundamental tension, that clash between Heraclitus and Parmenides, it arguably still resonates in how you approach the world and knowledge itself.
Oh, so?
It brings us to that old saying, sometimes pinned on Coleridge. Every person is born either an Aristotelian or a Platonist.
Ah, the idea of fundamental philosophical temperaments. Like in Raphael's painting, The School of Athens, Plato pointing up, Aristotle gesturing down.
Precisely. It's not just about historically deciding who is right. It's about recognizing your own inclination. Are you more like a Platonist, instinctively looking for the eternal patterns, the big ideas, the view from above?
Or more Aristotelian, grounded in the observable facts, the specific details, the here and now.
That initial lean, that deep-seated way you approach information, seeking the unchanging forms in the sky or classifying the tangible realities on Earth, arguably, it still shapes how you learn and make sense of things today. It's a fascinating question to ask yourself.